They were high school sweethearts with bright futures ahead of them.
She definitely wanted to own her own bakery.
Ryan's dream was to get a college football scholarship.
But those dreams would end in tragedy.
I don't know where my teenage daughter is.
Someone had broken into the house.
I saw her laying there, a pool of blood running from her head.
The brutal crime leaves the community shattered.
People couldn't hold themselves together.
All I could do was cry.
What did she do to deserve this?
When the horrible truth is finally revealed, the answer is absolutely heartbreaking.
It was a sad ordeal. There was no indication that something like this could have happened.
I started crying. I didn't know if it was true or not.
March 21st, 2014. It's a quiet Friday afternoon in the Houston suburb of Pearland, Texas.
The community is a great place to live. The schools are wonderful. Everything you can imagine for shopping is there.
In the gated community of Country Place, the kids who ride the bus are just getting home from school.
It's a golf course community, so, people actually had some very nice landscaped homes, and it was a nice, peaceful community.
At approximately 4:30 p.m., 13-year-old Kissler Hill walks to the front door of his family's Country Place home, just like every other school day. Ordinarily, Kissler's 16-year-old sister, Ariana, arrives home first.
Ariana was a high school junior, and she typically got a ride home from school with a friend.
It was typical for Ariana to go to the game room and just start vegging out watching television.
But this afternoon, as her brother walks in the door, he can't hear the TV upstairs.
Ariana!
Unsure where his sister is, Kissler heads upstairs to look for her. But before he gets to the game room, he spots an alarming sight.
He's noticing that his parents' bedroom is in disarray, things are thrown about.
At that point, he just gets spooked. He quickly leaves the house and sprinted over to the neighbors.
Kissler runs next door and phones his mother at work.
Hello?
Mom, somebody's been in our house.
What? He was kind of panting, so I knew something was wrong. And I said, so slow down, tell me what's going on.
Where's Ariana?
I don't know.
Oh. Okay, you just stay there. I'll call Ariana.
His mother, Opal, called Ariana's cell phone. There was no answer.
Worried, Opal Hill calls her husband, David, and leaves work early to head home. Upon arrival, she cautiously enters the house.
I went through the first floor, nothing wrong, nothing on the floor, just absolutely nothing. And I'm thinking to myself, what was he talking about? There's absolutely nothing wrong in the house.
As she climbs the stairs, Opal finds the master bedroom ransacked.
I was thinking to myself, you need to call 911. You need to call 911.
Pearland 911? Yes, can you send police out to my house ASAP? Looks like someone's broken into my house.
She said, is there anything else that you can think of? And I said, yes, I don't know where my daughter is.
I tried calling, I didn't get an answer.
Okay.
So I'm afraid to walk further into the house.
No, don't go any farther into the house, okay?
The dispatcher instructs Opal to exit the residence and wait outside until officers arrive.
She said, well, don't panic. The police are on the way.
But it's a struggle to remain calm, not knowing if her little girl could be hurt or worse.
That was then starting to set in with me that I really didn't know where she was.
Born in 1997, Arrijana Hill had a bright and bubbly personality. As a child, she was always the life of the party.
She was a joyful person to be around. She could definitely change your day within a heartbeat. If you're having a bad day, she could come and just smile on your face and you'd be happy. She was very thoughtful. She was very loving. She had $1 million smile. If she smiled, it would change a lot of things.
At an early age, Ariana embraced her family's Christian faith.
She loved going to church. It was all fascinating to her. There was just something more that she wanted to do, wanted to get more involved, wanted to volunteer to do different things.
From singing in the choir to praise dancing, she was very active in our youth and children's ministry, and everybody loved her.
Growing up, Ariana had an affinity for sports, especially volleyball.
She begged us to let her play, and we decided to go ahead and let her play, and she was awesome at it.
She walked, talked, and slept volleyball.
But volleyball wasn't Ariana's only interest.
Ariana did play volleyball, but her big thing, her big passion was cooking.
She had told me that she actually wanted to go to culinary school and eventually open up her own bakery.
Brownies and cookies was her big things that she loved to do. We would always have her bake the cookies because we knew they were going to be right. She could bake a cookie that would just make you hurt yourself.
Talented on the court and in the kitchen, the pretty junior soon caught the boys' attention.
She was the popular girl. Everyone liked her. She had a good personality. So with a good personality comes guys and crushes and stuff like that.
However, of all the boys vying for Ariana's affection, the one who caught her eye was a junior named Ryan Matthews.
They had classes together, and they'd seen each other a couple times, and he said something to her, so he sparked the conversation.
What's up, y'all?
Oh, hi.
You going to the game Friday?
He played running back for Dawson High School's JV team.
He wanted to play sports in college and then eventually go to the NFL. And in high school, being an athlete is kind of a thing that girls kind of just fawn over.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Cool. I'll see you in the stands.
I definitely remember her having a crush on him. And she liked athletes, obviously because she's an athlete.
Within weeks of that first encounter, Ariana and Ryan were going steady. Although as things heated up between the teens, Ariana's family noticed that her once laser-like focus on her dreams was starting to slip.
I could tell that was kind of derailing her. I wanted her really to focus on school and graduate, and then you can worry about boys, you know?
After all, Ariana had a bright future ahead of her, or so everyone thought. But on the afternoon of March 21st, 2014, Ariana's family is beset by a far more frightening concern.
I get an alarming phone call from my wife stating that our youngest son had come home and the house looked like it had been broken into.
They were both under the impression that there was a burglary that had possibly occurred at their house, and they were unable to get a hold of Ariana.
Fearing for his daughter's safety, David Hill arrives moments after his wife, Opal.
David! Somebody broke in the house!
By the time I pulled into the driveway, she was letting me know that the police were on their way.
Wait, police told us to stay outside! David!
Ariana! Ariana!
I went charging into the house and ran to the game room because I know that's normally where she would be when she comes home from school. And as I proceed out of the game room, I looked into her room and there she was.
Ariana! Oh my God!
What I saw was her laying there with her head turned sideways. I saw a pool of blood running from her head.
Within minutes, David Hill walks back outside where his wife is waiting.
He stopped for a second, and he didn't say anything, and then he just bellowed oh my God scream that I'd never heard before. He just kind of was shaking his head. And I was just saying, what is it? What is it? And he was like, no.
Is she in there?
At that point in time, I couldn't say anything.
He was trying to call pastor, and once he got a chance to talk to someone, he then said, my daughter's been murdered.
No. Yes, sir. It's not her. It's not her.
No, you don't need to see that.
Yes, I do.
You don't need to see that.
That's not her. No.
I immediately just started to cry and scream and, kind of lose it. I was like, that just can't be. And I wouldn't allow myself to believe it at all.
"16-year-old Arrijana Hill had everything going for her.
She was smart, pretty, popular, dating a football player, and had dreams of going to culinary school someday.
But on the afternoon of March 21st, 2014, those dreams are shattered when Ariana's father discovers her lying in a pool of blood.
And I just hollered, oh my God, and came running back down the stairs, and my wife was at the bottom, and that's that point in time I told her she's gone.
I just was in disbelief. I was like, I want to see for myself. And I wanted to go in, and of course he was like, no, I cannot let you see that.
Thankfully, Ariana's teenage brother was safe and sound at the neighbor's house, and he hadn't seen his sister's dead body.
When officers arrive, David Hill painfully informs them that he's found Ariana.
My daughter's been murdered.
With guns drawn, officers enter the home. Once inside Ariana's bedroom, they confirm she is in fact deceased.
You can very clearly see Ariana's body laying at the foot of the bed with her head towards the door. There were no signs of life. There was a huge pool of blood underneath the head and neck area.
Within minutes, detectives arrive on the scene.
It was very clear that she had suffered a wound that led to a lot of blood. Upon closer inspection, it was clear that there were 2 puncture wounds on her neck. It was believed that the wounds were from a sharp object of some kind, likely a knife.
While the injuries to Ariana's body suggest she was attacked with a knife, the rest of the bedroom doesn't yield much in the way of clues.
There were no other signs of struggle, and everything else appeared fairly peaceful and passive for what had occurred. It was a bit unusual.
Detectives then turn their attention to the master bedroom.
You could immediately see that there was some items, figurines and stuff that were on the floor, broke or not how they normally would be.
But something about the scene immediately doesn't sit right with detectives.
There were no drawers that had been opened, nothing that would indicate a typical burglary where a burglar just comes in and takes, high-dollar appliances or, like TVs and gaming systems. All that stuff was still intact. No signs of anything missing.
In an effort to determine how the perpetrator entered the Hill residence, detectives checked the downstairs for clues.
The front door was intact. The back door was completely fine. There were no signs of forced entry throughout the home. Even the windows were intact.
It seemed to indicate that the killer was invited into the house.
Was Ariana's killer someone she knew? To help them answer that question, detectives turned to her grieving parents.
Opal Hill was very distraught, clearly unconsolable at the time. David Hill was able to maintain his composure enough to speak with me.
First of all, is there anyone other than family that would have had access to the home?
No. She wouldn't let anybody in, especially with us not being home.
That was our rule, is that we don't allow others into the house if parents weren't there.
Is there anyone that you can think of that would have wanted to harm your daughter?
It wasn't just Ariana.
What do you mean?
It wasn't just her.
What David Hill tells detectives reveals the full depth of this tragedy.
David Hill informed me that they had not that long ago found out that Ariana was pregnant.
According to David, Ariana's older brother, Korsten, who was away at college, was the first member of the family she'd let in on her secret.
She called me and she said, I have something to tell you. And I'm like, okay, what is it? And she told me, and the first thing I did was sit down and I had her repeat herself, and I just broke down crying. And I was like, well, do mom and dad know?
When she first found out she was pregnant, she was more scared to tell her parents than anything else.
Her family values did not promote premarital sex, so I'm sure there was some embarrassment there.
But even as Ariana kept her parents in the dark, the rumors began circulating among her friends.
A lot of people at school found out about her being pregnant. And I remember people would actually be talking about it. And I think they had like group messages talking about it and stuff like that. So that was added pressure.
But David tells detectives that despite Ariana's fears, their reaction was far more understanding than she'd imagined.
I love my daughter, so, my thing was, I gotta love her through it. I gotta help her through, what she was gonna be going through.
That was a huge weight off her shoulders. At that point, it was just like, wow, it's not a secret anymore. She was able to really relax and start seeing what her future was gonna be like.
But little did Ariana and her parents know, the pregnancy wasn't the only surprise they were in for.
The nurse sat down and she said, here's baby A and here's baby B. And I was like, oh my God.
Once we actually found out that it was gonna be more than one, the tables kind of turned. A wow factor at that point.
Ariana and I looked at each other and we hugged each other, embraced each other, and just cried.
She was even more happy about that just because, who has twins just like that? Like, that's a huge blessing.
Soon, Ariana and her mother were busy picking out names.
So I shared some names, and some she liked, some she didn't, and we just kind of went back and forth on some of them. But we did settle on 2 boys, 2 girl names. The PA said that the way they were positioned and all that, they were going to be identical twins.
With her parents' love and support, Ariana began making preparations for the new road that lay ahead.
She was getting ready to transition into the alternative school.
It's normal where girls who are pregnant can go and then continue to keep their classes and their grades up.
She would still get the same education. It's just that she wouldn't have to worry about any complications with her being pregnant.
In fact, Ariana's father explains to detectives that today was her last official day at Dawson High.
This was March 21st, on Friday. She would be beginning the alternative school on Monday.
Detectives wondered if the timing might somehow factor into why she was killed.
Considering everything they have just learned, detectives have one last question for Ariana's father.
Do you know who the father is? The father? Yeah. The boy goes there to school. It's Ryan Matthews.
He would obviously be one individual that would be very close to Ariana. So it was clearly someone that we wanted to speak with.
Detectives hope that Ryan Matthews will shed some much-needed light on the investigation. But what they uncover once they arrive at Ryan's home only adds another bizarre layer to the case.
They're asking for the name of Ryan Matthews, and the neighbor is not familiar with that name, living at that house.
It was a falsified address. Detectives had no idea what they were dealing with.
Just moments after Arrijana Hill's father found her dead inside their family home, detectives in Pearland, Texas have discovered that Ariana was pregnant with twins.
Detectives knew they would need to speak with the father of Ariana's unborn children, but first they decided to fan out in search of potential witnesses to her attack.
We were speaking with neighbors to see if they'd heard anything, if they'd seen anything out of the normal, what they may know about the family or Ariana.
One neighbor does provide detectives with a potentially important piece of information.
There was a neighbor that saw what he believed to be a white truck, either in the driveway or somewhere near the Hill residence.
All the neighbor could tell was that there was an African-American man sitting in the truck.
Detectives wondered if possibly Ryan drove a white truck.
You've never seen that white truck in the neighborhood before?
No, not that truck.
Armed with this new information, detectives leave the scene to track down Ariana's boyfriend, Ryan Matthews. Meanwhile, patrol officers search the area for a possible murder weapon.
Since it looked as though Ariana had been stabbed, they are looking for a knife.
They had brought in the Hills, David and Opal, and had asked if basically any of the knives in the house were missing, and they said no. So that would obviously suggest that a knife was brought in from outside the house.
There was a lot of open land all around the house that we thought a weapon or any other evidence could be hidden, but the murder weapon was never recovered.
Around the same time officers at the scene are striking out in search of the murder weapon, homicide detectives arrive at Ryan's residence.
They contacted the school resource officer at Dawson High School. He was able to go into their database and find out where Ryan Matthews had stated he lived.
However, it appears that on this afternoon, no one is home.
We then talked to a neighbor and asked them if they knew who lived there, they were familiar with Ryan.
The neighbor's answer takes them by surprise.
They have a son, but not Ryan Matthews.
The neighbor said that it was a totally different family that lived there.
This unexpected news sends detectives scrambling.
I actually used the computer I had on me at the time, try to research some more about Ryan and his family, if there was possibly another address.
Detectives had a deceased teenage girl on their hands, and her boyfriend has essentially disappeared. Detectives needed to get to the bottom of Ryan's whereabouts, and his family for that matter.
Luckily for detectives, the individual who actually lives at the residence arrives moments later.
The woman was pulling up in the driveway, and they were able to speak to her at that time.
The woman tells detectives that Ryan is a friend of the family, and there's a simple reason why the school has the wrong address.
Okay, well, he actually doesn't live here. We just let him use the address to go to the high school in the area.
He still lived within the school district that would be zoned to Pearland High School, so he falsified his address. That was the address that the school resource officer passed on to the detectives.
Ryan apparently had switched schools in order to have better odds and chances at excelling in their football program and potentially getting a scholarship.
With that mystery solved, detectives asked the homeowner to do them one more favor.
She got a hold of the Matthews family and let them know that the police were looking for Ryan.
A few minutes later, Ryan and his parents arrive at the house.
We advised them that we'd like to speak with Ryan alone. Everybody agreed, and we went inside.
They sit him down on a couch where they begin their interview with him.
Ryan was very cooperative during the interview, and he'd actually advised that he'd kind of heard some things through social media prior to arriving to talk to us. He'd said he'd seen some things like "Rest in peace, Ariana."
Friends started calling me saying, "Is it true? Is Ariana dead?" And I didn't know how to answer because I didn't know what was going on. People are saying she's been shot, or just that's basically what I'm just hearing.
Ryan also explains that he and Ariana had been dating since the previous fall.
We just were really into each other, and I'm not sure if she wanted to take it to the next step, but it's just so happened we ended up doing it.
Ryan admits to initially being shocked by the news that Ariana was pregnant.
I didn't really know what to think or what to do because I'm 16. I don't know how to take care of a child.
He was worried about what that meant for his future.
But Ryan says that when he learned Ariana was expecting twins, he decided it was time to do the right thing.
He knew once it was twins that he was going to have to step up and take care of the twins at that point.
Right then and there, we had no choice. We were going to keep them. And she was due September 8th.
Ryan appears to be telling the truth, but it's at this point that detectives' questions become pointed.
They start asking him questions and to his whereabouts and the timeline of events and when he was last seen Ariana.
Even if nothing happened, I just need to kind of know. Did you go over there?
I'm scared. I don't know what's going on. And
well, that's one. Did you go over there today?
I went over there yesterday and today.
Okay. Can you tell me what happened today?
He said that they just hung out and talked about the pregnancy, and that was pretty much it.
At least, that's what Ryan tells them at first.
He initially denied having sex with her, but then he changed that story.
And at some point, he advised that they did start to have sex.
She wanted to do it, and I was like, I don't know if that's so sure, that could smush the baby.
He said he stopped because he didn't want to injure the unborn babies.
We started doing it, but then I didn't feel right. So, I put my clothes on after that. We just cuddled.
According to Ryan, as he and Ariana cuddled, the conversation took a more serious turn.
I was just crying, telling her, I'm really scared, and I know you're scared too. And we just gotta be strong together.
She became emotional, but he had to go back to practice, so he left Ariana on the bed crying.
I gave her a kiss goodbye, and I touched her stomach. And after that, I left.
According to Ryan, that was a few minutes after 3 o'clock, well before her little brother got home.
We asked when the last time he had had communication with Ariana was. He advised us that he had texted her at around 4 o'clock, and then he advised there was probably about 3 texts between 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock, and he had not received a response.
But he said that not long after that, through social media, he had figured out why she had not responded.
All I see is down the timeline, RIP, and I heard Arrijana Hill's name in it. And then as soon as that, I just started crying. I didn't know if it was true or not, what was going on.
Near the end of the interview, Ryan surprises detectives with a question, one that could point to the possible killer.
Ryan asked us, what about the white pickup truck?
Ryan tells police that he saw a white pickup truck parked outside of Ariana's house on the street when he left.
The same white truck the Hill's neighbors claimed they saw that afternoon.
That's what kind of confused me because I don't know anybody that drives a white pickup truck.
By the evening of March 21st, 2014, social media has spread the news of Arrijana Hill's murder all across suburban Pearland, Texas.
I was sitting in my room and a friend FaceTimed me. She was hysterically crying on the phone. And she was like, I don't know what's happening, but everybody's saying like, rest in peace, Ariana.
I was in shock. I'm like, wow, I can't believe this happened to her. You know, this is unbelievable.
So far, the only person of interest in the case is 16-year-old Ryan Matthews, Ariana's boyfriend and the father of her unborn twins. But Ryan has been cooperating with the investigation, and during his interview with detectives, appears to be telling the truth.
Since Ryan had been by the house that afternoon, detectives needed to rule him out as a suspect.
Ryan and his parents agreed to give some of his DNA with buccal swabs, as well as his cell phone.
Detectives also collect a pair of Ryan's jeans, a shirt, and a black backpack.
These were all items that Ryan told police that he had worn to school earlier that day.
He told his dad he was doing workout, gym, PE stuff, so he had to change into PE clothes.
Detectives send the clothes, DNA swabs, and cell phone to the crime lab. The next morning, they obtain surveillance video from the guard shack at the entrance of the Hills gated community and bring it to the station for processing.
We were aware that there was surveillance video at the guard shack, so we reviewed the video from that day.
In particular, they were looking for clues about the mysterious white truck that might have been connected to Ariana's murder.
When the officers came to the neighborhood, there was the mention of the white truck in front of that house, somewhere within that time frame. Ryan was able to communicate the white truck to the officers as well.
I did observe a white truck enter at 3 o'clock, and that same white truck actually left at approximately 4:45.
This white pickup truck was driven by an African-American male.
Detectives could also make out the truck's license plate.
I did verify the license plate, determined who the vehicle was registered to, and subsequently followed up with that individual.
The truck is registered to a man named DeAndre Bach.
He actually owned a landscaping business that had numerous clients in that community.
At this point, anything was possible. Maybe DeAndre was stalking Ariana or had some ill will towards her.
After tracking DeAndre down, detectives bring him in for questioning.
He was not very responsive.
He didn't remember being in the neighborhood.
I'm not sure. I mean, I be in and out of there all the time. I have a bunch of yards I do back there. The days just kind of run together, you know?
To jog his memory, detectives show him a still picture from the video.
Yeah, that's me. Come to think of it, I did swing by.
He didn't have a reason why he was there other than to believe it was business related. I believe the final answer was that he was picking up payment.
We basically ran into an investigative dead end with him. I mean, I didn't have anything else I could really follow up on.
With no other concrete leads, detectives go back to the surveillance tape pulled from the guard shack.
At this point, they were looking for any other vehicles that might have entered the neighborhood at the time of the murder.
Scrolling back almost an hour before DeAndre's truck arrived, detectives spot a black SUV carrying 2 young men, one in the back and one in the driver's seat, along with a young woman seated in the passenger seat.
The passenger appeared to be Ariana, and there was a third passenger in the vehicle that was in the back seat behind the passenger seat, but due to the window tint, we were unable to determine who that was.
To uncover the identities of the 2 young men, detectives reach out to the guards who man the security gates at Ariana's neighborhood.
Spoke with 2 of the security guards that work at the guard shack. One of them advised that she knew for sure the driver was named Isaiah.
Isaiah lived within the same neighborhood as Ariana.
Detectives also confirmed that Isaiah drove a dark SUV and that sometimes he gave Ariana a ride home from school.
But that isn't all.
Interviews with Ariana's friends revealed that he had a crush on her.
It was kind of just like, oh, you kind of like me and I kind of like you, like that type of thing.
But detectives can't help but wonder, could Isaiah's crush have been not so innocent?
This guy could be jealous and he could have killed her.
Detectives investigating the death of 16-year-old Arrijana Hill have unearthed a new person of interest, Isaiah Frost, a fellow student at Dawson High, who appears to have driven Ariana home from school on the afternoon of her murder.
Isaiah lives in the community. He was known to have a crush on Ariana. At that point, authorities are wondering, could he have killed her in a jealous rage?
To answer that question, detectives obtained parental consent to ask Isaiah himself.
Isaiah, we know you drove Arrijana home.
So, I did it all the time.
Was there anybody else in the car with you and her?
Her boyfriend?
Her boyfriend, Ryan Matthews?
Yes.
Did you give him a ride to their house often?
Sometimes.
He had been asked by Ryan if he could give them a ride to Ariana's house that day. So Isaiah did give them a ride from school. They left a few minutes early.
Did you know why they were going back to her house?
Same reason they always did. They were gonna have sex.
What did you think about that?
It's not my business. If that's what she wants, of course.
Did it make you mad that she chose him over you?
I guess.
Mad enough to hurt her?
Wait, what? No.
Isaiah told detectives they had it backwards. If he was mad at anyone, it was Ryan.
It wasn't right the way he treated her.
How so? How did he treat her?
Isaiah tells police that Ryan was a bit of a player at school and considered Ariana to be a friend with benefits.
Dude, benefits? She's having your babies. I didn't understand him.
Well, why'd you give him a ride then?
Hey, he paid me.
Isaiah explains that since Ryan didn't have a driver's license, he would sometimes pay Isaiah to drive him and Ariana around.
So Isaiah did give them a ride from school, and he did, in fact, come back at 3 o'clock, pick up Ryan, and dropped him off at Dawson High School, where Ryan's father picked him up at school.
You think Ryan could have done anything like this?
Nah. He likes to act tough like most guys on the team, but I don't think he could be a cold-blooded killer.
And Isaiah advised that Ryan seemed perfectly normal, like any other day or time that he'd actually come into contact with him.
So at this point, there was nothing that Isaiah said that conflicted with Ryan's version of events, which suggested that Ryan was innocent and that maybe the killer was still unidentified.
However, Isaiah tells detectives that there were a couple of things that seemed off when he picked Ryan up later that afternoon.
Ryan came out of the house and got in the car, but Ariana didn't come shut the door, which was pretty normal of her to do.
And Isaiah says that's not all.
He changed his clothes.
Really?
When he picked him up, he was wearing a black Under Armour type shirt.
Isaiah's description of Ryan's shirt did not match the shirt he was wearing when he spoke to police, nor did it match Ryan's description of what he said he wore to school that day.
Detectives wonder why Ryan had changed clothes and where those clothes might be now.
So the question for detectives now is whether this information is proof that Ryan was in fact involved in Ariana's murder, or if this was quick thinking on Isaiah's part to cover his own tracks and point the finger at Ryan.
Could Isaiah have gone back to Ariana's home after he left with Ryan? After all, she would be alone by herself. And at that time, if he wanted to act out a jealous rage and kill her, that would be the opportune time.
When detectives look into this theory, though, the evidence appears to rule Isaiah out.
Surveillance video showed him leaving with Ryan at 3:15 and not returning to the community until after the murder was committed.
Unfortunately, since they were driving away from the camera, the gatehouse surveillance video could not confirm what Ryan was wearing.
On Monday morning, detectives obtained surveillance footage from the school, hoping to confirm Isaiah's story.
We have video of them exiting the school together, the three of them, Isaiah, Ryan, and Ariana.
One thing stood out in particular on that video. Ryan was not wearing what he told police he was wearing.
He's wearing a blue polo type shirt, collared shirt, and some almost tan loafer style, penny loafer style shoes.
He never mentioned the blue shirt nor those shoes, and he in fact had told me the wrong backpack.
His backpack is not black, but it's multicolored backpack. And so they realized that this backpack is not the one that he was wearing that day.
We obviously didn't have at least part of the clothing that Ryan had wore to Ariana's house that day. Obviously that was evidence in this case, so search warrants were obtained.
That afternoon, detectives searched the Matthews home, but there's no sign of any of the clothing items seen in the school surveillance video. However, they do find the black shirt Isaiah claims Ryan was wearing when he left Ariana's house.
The shirt appeared to be clean and devoid of anything that might resemble human blood.
But as investigators are finishing up, Ryan comes home from school.
Mom, what's going on?
When Ryan walked in through the door, he was wearing the multicolored backpack detectives were trying to find.
Inside the multicolored backpack was a pair of tan Sperry's that was consistent with what we saw in the video.
Interestingly enough, the backpack also had a section cut out of it.
Upon closer examination, you can also see something that gives the visual appearance of possibly being blood.
Four days after the murder of Arrijana Hill, detectives in Pearland, Texas are focusing on Ariana's boyfriend, Ryan Matthews, as the prime suspect.
Surveillance video from Dawson High School showed that Ryan was not wearing what he said he was wearing on the day of Ariana's murder.
Obviously, it sounds like he's trying to distance himself from those items, if not completely hide them from the police.
But when they encountered Ryan during the execution of a search warrant on his parents' house, detectives recovered the shoes and backpack Ryan had been wearing the afternoon of the murder.
There was actually a small section of the backpack that was cut out, but there was still blood around that area that had been cut out.
But was it Ariana's blood? Detectives confiscate the backpack for forensic testing. Within weeks, they received the results.
Ariana's DNA was discovered on the shoes, on the backpack.
With all the evidence they had now, the video placing him at the scene at the time of the murder, the blood evidence, the change of clothes, and the lies, it was enough to formally charge him.
On May 13, 2014, Pearland police arrest Ryan Matthews for the murder of Arrijana Hill.
He transferred to Pasadena. They arrested him at school. I actually felt a wave of relief. He had gotten a new girlfriend and he was acting like everything was normal. So everyone was like, what's going on? And then when they found out, they were kind of just taken aback by the whole thing.
Ariana's family is just as stunned.
I didn't want to accept it because she was dating him. And he'd never portrayed to me to be that person that would do something like that.
When he's booked into the Brazoria County Jail, Ryan professes his innocence.
He maintained this air of, I will get out of here and I will go on with my career. He described how in about 2 years he would be going into the NFL draft and that he'd be a first-round draft pick. It was a matter of delusion almost.
On April 14, 2015, Ryan Matthews' trial gets underway. Prosecutors confidently lay out their case, focusing on the blood evidence found on Ryan's multicolored backpack.
The DNA is a very important part of this case.
To explain how it got there, prosecutors walked the jury through what happened after Ariana and Ryan returned to her house the afternoon of the murder.
It's pretty clear that from the evidence that Isaiah drops the two of them off. They enter the house as they normally would, make their way to her bedroom.
But according to prosecutors, sex isn't what Ryan had on his mind.
How much longer till your brother gets home?
We got at least an hour. Ryan, what are you doing?
The medical examiner believed that it was highly likely that Ariana had been strangled prior to the stab wounds, hence she was barely conscious at the time.
He stabbed her and punctured her carotid artery.
After Ariana bled out, Ryan cleaned himself up and changed his clothes.
We believe that Ryan wrapped up the murder weapon, the knife itself, with the blue shirt and placed it into the backpack.
Since the knife and the blue shirt were never recovered, police suspected Ryan disposed of them at some point.
Prosecutors believe that once he changed clothes, Ryan attempted to make the attack look like a deadly breaking and entering.
Going into the master bedroom and just essentially swiping the items off the dresser.
Then Ryan called Isaiah Frost and asked him to pick him up and deliver him to football practice.
3:11 p.m. Ryan and Isaiah leave the gated community, and Isaiah drops Ryan back off at the Dawson High School. 3:23 p.m. Ryan texts Ariana, "Hey baby, what you doing?" Already, this kid is creating an alibi.
However, prosecutors point out that these text messages aren't the only evidence found on Ryan's phone.
Ryan agreed to turn over his cell phone to the Pearland police for analysis.
Prosecutors read recovered texts between Ryan and Ariana to the jury.
The forensic analysis of Ryan's phone showed numerous texts back and forth. A great majority of those texts had to do with the pregnancy.
He clearly didn't want kids. He was very adamant about her getting an abortion.
There was also talk and discussion about harming yourself by perhaps punching yourself in the stomach to eliminate the pregnancy.
She was like, you know what? No, I'm not gonna do it. I'm going to do what I believe in doing, and that is keep the baby and move forward. That just lifted my heart to hear that. It's just like I was hearing her speak through the text.
And contrary to what Ryan had told detectives earlier, the news that she was expecting twins did not make him more inclined to step up and be part of his children's lives.
She's really excited, and she texts Ryan to say, hey, I'm having twins. She thought he would be happy, but he was furious.
It sent him into a tailspin. He was very distraught by the idea of having one child, much less two children. He was very harsh and critical of her through text messages about that.
Ryan tells Ariana that his only dream is to play college football and that having a child will prevent that dream.
The text message communications were huge in this case. It clearly sets out a motive.
Ryan threatens to commit suicide unless she has an abortion.
According to prosecutors, it's an idle threat.
With most manipulative personality types, threats of suicide, those are just tactics that someone does to get what they want.
Prosecutors assert that despite Ryan's repeated pleas, Ariana refused to have an abortion, which, as her final days at Dawson approached, sent Ryan into full-blown panic mode.
She was getting ready to transfer to the alternative school where she would be until the twins were born.
Friday the 21st will be her last day. And so if he's gonna act, he's gonna have to do it soon.
Ryan Matthews was willing to do whatever it took for Ariana not to block any of his future plans, and that included killing her.
When it's the defense's turn, they begin by suggesting that detectives had been too quick to rule out landscaper DeAndre Bach, the driver of the white truck spotted near the crime scene.
The defense's theory in the case was maybe that DeAndre Bach or someone within his landscaping company killed Ariana.
But the defense only calls one witness to back up their claims, Ryan Matthews.
Ryan took the stand, which was very surprising. As a prosecutor, you're always excited to have the opportunity to cross-examine the defendant.
Although if Ryan is worried about what prosecutors might ask him, he certainly doesn't show it.
When they put Ryan on the witness stand, first of all, he immediately started to smirk and smile, and we're all looking at him like, are you crazy? This is not something to laugh at. That's another sign to let you know this kid was deranged.
It was obvious that he thought this whole thing was a joke.
A smirking Ryan tells the jury he's innocent of any wrongdoing. When prosecutors get a chance to cross-examine Ryan, they bring up one final piece of evidence that wipes the smirk right off his face.
Finally, we get to the issue of what happened to the blue shirt, Ryan, the blue shirt that we see you on the video in. At that point, Ryan basically gives a response of, well, I got a hole in my shirt that day, and I needed to throw it away.
Who throws away a shirt if they're innocent?
This was probably about as close as I've ever got to a confession of murder on the witness stand.
After 5 hours of deliberations, Ryan was convicted of capital murder.
Capital murder, in this particular case, is the killing of an individual younger than 10 years of age. And in Texas, we consider an individual to include babies from the moment of gestation through birth.
The conviction carries a mandatory life sentence.
He will be eligible for parole in 40 years.
But for Ariana's family, that falls far short of justice.
I was glad that they had sentenced him to where he couldn't get out no time soon, if at all. But that just wasn't good enough, because he took more than just one life. He took 3 lives. They were all precious.
And now all Ariana's family can do is cling to their memory of her.
Once he passed, I probably visited her grave. Maybe 3 to 4 times a week, I go see her, because I don't feel right if I don't. And when I pass by, I blow 3 kisses, 1 for her, 2 for the boys. And nobody knows that. It kind of brings me peace. I just want her to know that I still love her, even though she's not here.
I'm still thinking she's eventually going to walk through that door. I need to be ready for that. Her physical body is not here, but her spirit is still here with us.